Hello dear students, my friends and to all the viewers. I am Dr. Santosh Patil. Today I will be addressing a class on prevention of surgical site infection. A very important topic for three reasons. The first being it can be asked as a short notes or a long question for operation theatre management or how to prevent the surgical site infections. The second, for all the MBBS final year students will be clearing their exams and will be part of their internship. They need to know these basic guidelines or few basic guidelines which I'll be teaching in this class when they enter into surgery postings and also when they are handling a case of a surgery patient. Also, for the first year surgery residents who have to understand the basics of treating a patient or taking care of the patients who will be undergoing a surgery. Prevention and management of surgical site infection has plenty of challenges. One is because of the increased severity of the illness and increased number of surgical patients who are elderly. Many of the patients, geriatric patients undergoing surgery, have to face post-operatively the complication. One, it may be because of the decreased immunity, or second, it may be because of the multiple comorbid conditions that are associated with the elderly people. And third being increased risk or increased number of chronic and debilitating conditions that are associated with when patient comes or when a patient undergoes a surgery, or if the condition is patient is associated with the immunocompromised conditions. And increased number of prosthetic implants and organ transplant being performed recently again poses high risk for the patients to have infection because of the growing frequency of the antimicrobial resistant pathogens. We or most of the quacks or the doctors who do not have basic knowledge about the antibiotic, which antibiotic to be given to which particular conditions, what are the antibiotic prophylaxis that are needed. If the protocol is not followed, most probably the patient will usually land into a antibiotic resistance, or the organism also may have a resistance to these particular antibiotics. So the difficulties are plenty whenever you are planning to treat a patient or planning to prevent or manage the surgical site infection. Again, there is lack of compliance with hand hygiene. This is the basic most things which any doctor should follow. In the present corona conditions, no doubt most of the people are following. It would be better these basics of hygiene maintenance is followed throughout their professional career while treating the patient. Definitely people just hand wash alone can prevent plenty of infection in the hospital. The prevention of surgical site infection depends on the plenty of factors. One is the patient characteristics and the risk factors. Means when a patient comes to a hospital, we have to assess or take a detailed history of these patients and look for the comorbid conditions that are associated with it. The disease may be single, but surgery may be a single one, but maybe patients associated comorbid factors counts to the surgical site infection. And preoperative preparation. Whenever a patient comes to the hospital, what are the preoperative preparation that needs to be addressed to the patient will be discussed. Surgical technique plays an important role in preventing the surgical site infection. And perioperative factors, intraoperative and postoperative factors, again few points that will be addressing in detail. Antibiotic prophylaxis, yes, this is the most basic thing a intern or a surgery resident is supposed to know, that I'll be discussing again in detail. Post-operative care of the wounds. So we'll start with the patient characteristics. Patient extremes of the age, yes, definitely extremes of the age have decreased tolerance for the infection, or what we can say is the tolerance levels to the infection it is low, mainly because of the decrease in the immunity. In extremes of the age, again old age people, as I told, the associated comorbid conditions again hamper the patients to overcome the infection. The nutritional status, it has been discussed in detail. Any patient who has a poor nutritional status, be it in the form of a decreased BMI, it has been proved like patient with a BMI less than 18.5 have high chance of getting post-operative infection and the complications associated with that of any surgery. For example, if a patient undergoes a resection anastomosis of a bowel, even in elective case also, the chances of having anastomotic dehiscence or the leakage are very high if the BMI is low. We can check the nutrition status of the patient clinically by checking the mid-arm circumference, mid-thigh circumference and hip to waist ratio. Patient's BMI should be ideal to undergo a surgery, and biochemically a patient's serum transferrin and serum albumin are the things which need to be assessed preoperatively to look for the protein contents is what we are looking for to see for the nutrition status of the patient. Diabetes, yes, diabetes is one of the comorbid conditions that needs to be addressed for any patient, be it elective surgery or a emergency surgery. If patient has an uncontrolled diabetes, high glucose levels are the medium for the bacteria to grow, and postoperatively it increases the risk of infection. Smoking, nicotine delays the wound healing. And obesity, as I told again, not only the BMI less than underweight or poor nutrition status, even patient who are obese, whose BMI is more than 20% of the ideal weight, are highly susceptible for getting wound infection. And remote infection, so whenever a patient plan for any surgery, be it elective surgery or emergency surgery, has a remote infection. For example, if you are planning for any surgery, patient has a sore throat or a pharyngeal infection, it is better to defer the surgery for at least 1 week till the infection is cleared. In emergency situation, it becomes an emergency and patient has to be taken with the high risk and plan for surgery. Again, patients with the cardiac stents, if there are dental infection, it is better to go for an antibiotic prophylaxis, which is well planned thing before planning for surgery. And endogenous microorganisms, if the patient is planned for a bowel surgery, it is better to preoperatively prepare the bowel thoroughly and plan for an elective surgery. Immunosuppressive drugs, yes, definitely immunosuppressive drugs are the one which are going to decrease the immunity and the healing property of any wound. The preoperative factors are one more, minimize the preoperative stay. It is any elective patient, it is preferable to admit the patient in the early morning hours of the day of surgery and plan for all the preoperative preparation and go ahead with the surgery. Admitting a patient 1 day or 2 days before in a hospital increases the patient for the nosocomial or hospital acquired infections. Patient who are healthy patient unnecessarily getting infected is not acceptable. It is preferable to plan all elective surgery by just decreasing the pre-advanced or advanced hospital stays. Identify and treat the remote infections. Adequately control the blood glucose levels in a diabetic patient. Encourage discontinuation of tobacco for 30 days for the good respiratory if patient is planned for any general anesthesia or a major surgery. Consider delaying elective procedure in severely malnourished patient. As I told, poor nourishment decreases the wound healing process as well as the anastomotic leakages are high, and whenever it is advisable for the patient to build up the nutrition, that is at least for 2 weeks to 1 month is the time that has to be given to a patient for the building up of the nutrition. High protein diet has to be supplemented to these patients, and good diet chart has to be advised, and only then once you think the patient is fit for surgery, all the parameters are adequately met, only then he has to be planned for surgery. No recommendations for or discontinuation of steroid. Preoperative, few modifiable risk factors are there, that is controlling the blood glucose and diabetes. Preoperative chlorhexidine shower. Appropriate hair removal has to be done before the surgery, this I'll be discussing. And hand hygiene, as I told, whenever patient need to be examined preoperatively in the OT theater before planning for a surgery to localizing the site of incision, always clean the hand with the proper antiseptic measures. Post-operatively, if you are examining the wound, always before and after washing hands only, it is recommended to examine the wound. Skin antisepsis, what are the skin antisepsis that has to be used intraoperatively, that will be discussed again. And antimicrobial prophylaxis, I will be addressing that also. And preoperative preparation with showering with antimicrobial agents. There are some conflicting evidence and which are unproven, but chlorhexidine wash, most of the orthopedic surgeons usually they plan for a thorough washing cleaning of the operated site. Preoperatively showering 1 day before in the hospital is not yet proven. Removal of the hair, it is always all the standard textbooks say immediately before the surgery. 1 day before the surgery, if you plan for a preoperative or the part preparation, there may be a small cuts and through the normal skin commensals only will enter into these molecules and acts as a nidus where the bacteria proliferate, and this may be source for the infection. I already told in my previous class, like most common organism is the Staph aureus, which is a common commensal of the patient's own microflora. So what is the method that is used for hair removal? Depilatory cream is more messier is what they say. It is better to go for the clipping method of removal of hair. And incision site antisepsis, yes, chlorhexidine or povidone iodine are the best. Alcohol based are being told to apply always for the site of the incision. Adhesive plastic drapes, yes, it has been unproven whether the adhesive plastic drapes will prevent in patient having a wound infection, so it is not advisable whether or not to go for adhesive plastic drapes. So preoperative preparation in the OT theater, or if you are examining a patient, it is advisable always to clean the hands with a good antiseptic solution. Apply to clean dry hands and as well as nails. Dispense about 2 ml on the palm hand, and always clean the area of the nail beds, the web spaces, and thoroughly, and always make sure it just dries without any wiping. So preoperative preparation, so clean underneath each fingernails prior to first surgical scrub. So when you are planning your first surgery of the day, it is advisable to go for a thorough surgical scrub, and after performing the surgical scrub, make sure your hands are up and away from the body, and allow water to run from hands to elbow. This is the step always to be followed if it is the first surgery of the day. If it is the subsequent, if you have a series of cases posted on the same day, not advisable to follow the same scrub, because more scrubbing, more exfoliation of the skin will cause to more activation of the dead cells as well as the back commensals, normal commensals of the skin. So only use the antiseptic solution for the subsequent cases. Always dry with the sterile towel. So preparation of the surgical team is also very important, and hand antisepsis method, which can be alcohol gels, are used for cleaning, and double gloving, gowns, masks or face shields are advisable. In the present era, that is the COVID era, it has become a norm where every surgeon or an anesthetist and all the caregivers in the OT theatre to preferably wear the face shield with preferably HEPA filters, and use the double gloves and gowns, and like a universe precaution method are advisable to take care to prevent any infection to the patient. The theatre environment also matters. Yes, ventilation, cleaning and minimizing the equipment mobilization in the OT theatre has to be checked, and theatre traffic means the discipline the surgeon has to take care. There is no excessive movement of the people other than other than the people who give care to the patient, like be it anesthetist, surgical team as well as the nursing team and one floor nurse. So OT environment, minimum 15 air changes per hour should be there with positive pressure, and filter all the air through the appropriate filters, and introduction of air should be from the ceiling and also the exhaust from the floor. Keep OT door always closed as needed for the passage of the equipment only, and also personal and the patients, that's all, and rest after that it should be closed. Limit the number of personnel to the that are allowed into the OT theatre, and considering ultra clean, that is what we call as modular OT theatre, where the air changes per hour is about 200 to 300. That is the difference between the conventional OT theatre, which is a 15 air changes per hour. In modular OT it is about 300 air changes per hour. And ventilation, high flow ventilation should be maintained, that is 15 air changes. High efficiency filtration rate, preferably go for the HEPA filters with high filtration process. Positive pressure relative to adjacent areas should be maintained, and maintain the temperature. The room temperature has to be always between 20 to 23 degree Celsius. That is the surgeon's preference, because the surgeons feel comfortable while operating. The standard textbook says this temperature has to be maintained. So intraoperatively, use appropriate antibiotics for the skin preparation. It can be povidone iodine, which has to be alcohol based, minimum 70 to 92%. Chlorhexidine 4%, 2% or 0.5% in alcohol base, and iodines or iodophos can be used. The mode of application is always in the concentric. For example, if you're planning for appendectomy, start your concentric application of the povidone iodine from incision site, and in circling movement come out towards the outer area and away from the operating field. So important thing is preparation area should include the incision, as well as if you're planning for a future drain, that drain area has to be always be painted. So surgical techniques, what are the ideal surgical techniques planned, that has to be taken care of. Laparoscopic surgeries are always preferred over the open surgeries, because one, the laparoscopic surgery has a very small incision. The point of operation is different from the point of entry, that prevents post-operative adhesions, post-operative wound infection also. And the amount of tissue dissection is less, post-operative hospital stay is less, post-operative requirement of antibiotic and painkillers is less. So there are plenty of benefits over laparoscopy over open surgery. So a surgeon has to decide what is the best for the patient. Staplers over sutures. Yes, staplers has to be used over the suture materials for a larger incisions. If the incision is big, always go for the staples. Technical skills, minimal handling of the tissue to prevent the trauma, and minimizing the procedure duration. So more the duration of surgery, more the exposure of patient to the anesthetic agent and the hospital environment and open environment, which are the source of infection. So preferably go for the faster procedures. Meticulous hemostasis. The procedure has to be fast, doesn't mean the surgeon has to finish the surgery fast and close it. Make sure the adequate or proper hemostasis has been achieved before closing the wound. Management of the infected or the colonized surgical personnel. If the personnel of our surgical team or a team who is involved in the surgery is infected, make sure he is excluded from the duty for surgical personnel, and do not routinely exclude personnel colonized with Staph aureus. And educate the people regarding the symptoms and signs of infection. In the present, again I am going to repeat, the COVID era, we all know what are the symptoms and signs. If a patient has, even a general population or the common man knows now how to evaluate the symptoms and signs. So it is advisable to educate the personnel regarding the symptoms and signs of infection. Instruments. Instruments has to be thoroughly sterilized before planning for any surgeries. The sterilization has to be by different techniques, that is the steam, ethylene oxide, hydrogen peroxide can be used, dry heat and other methods are used for the cleaning of the surgical instruments. And use of the material, the gowns, it is advisable to go for a high risk cases to go for a universal precaution, which has a disposable gowns. The gowns can be used sometimes with the plastic drapes. If you are planning for a major laparotomy or you expect a lot of spillage, preferably go for the plastic gowns over your regular gowns. And change of the surgical gloves. If the gloves are torn during the surgery, or if you're planning for a mesh replacement, usually most of the surgeons, they change the gloves before placing the or holding the foreign body, that is the mesh. If the gloves are contaminated, if you plan for a resection anastomosis and the gloves are contaminated with the fecal matter or external environment, it is preferably preferable to change the gloves and with the new gloves. Coming to the antibiotic prophylaxis, proven effective for contaminated. As I told in my previous class, the classification wound class: clean, contaminated and dirty wounds. Antibiotics are effective for the contaminated surgery and long duration surgery. There are certain issues like when to give the antibiotic, what is the duration of the antibiotic, everything has to be addressed. The choice of agent, that is what type of antibiotic used for what type of surgery, will be addressed. Correct dosing and timing. So the antibiotic should be such that it should be direct against the likely causative organism, but need not cover every potential pathogens. And make sure to take account of the susceptibility patterns within the institution, and limit selection pressure, that is avoid third generation cephalosporin and vancomycin. This should be kept for the next step of treatment. Prophylactic use, this is the chart that from the textbook of the Shorts. He clearly uses, you can see the first and the second generation of the cephalosporins only. For the cardiovascular surgery, cefazolin or cefuroxime can be used, and gastroduodenal GI surgery, it will go for the cefazolin. Biliary tract, open or laparoscopic, only laparoscopic for high risk. For low risk laparoscopy, there is no use for role of antibiotic prophylaxis, is what it says. And cefazolin, cefoxitin, cefotetan can be used. Appendectomy uncomplicated, again cefoxitin. So basically go for the first and the second generation of the antibiotic. Clindamycin can be used in the place of a metronidazole for all the other cases. If it is a clean surgery, it in the form of a breast or a hernia, cefazolin again is the first choice of antibiotic. This is from the textbook of the Schwartz, Bailey and Love in the latest edition. Again, even he mentions the first generation and second generation alone. If it is a vascular surgery, usually the organisms are Staphylococcus epidermidis. So prophylactic is go for the augmentin. Penicillin group of antibiotics is what he usually prefers. And if it is orthopedic, again 1 dose of augmentin. If it is a GI surgery, usually he go for the second generation cephalosporin. So what should be the dose and timing? A single dose or a single shot of intravenous administration is given at the time of anesthesia or at the time of induction of anesthesia. Achieve effective plasma. The reason for giving antibiotic at the induction of anesthesia is mainly to achieve effective plasma and tissue levels during and shortly after the surgical procedure when the bacterial contamination is maximum. And usually patients with heart valve disease or prosthesis, to protect from the bacteria, the patient has to undergo again a repeated dose of antibiotic. So when it is indicated to repeat the dose of an antibiotic, one is if you expect the duration of the surgery to be longer than expected, and one is a delay in the starting the procedure, or if the operation is prolonged, or if there is excessive blood loss associated. If in the special circumstances like amputation of the ischemic limb, again to go for the extra dose of antibiotic. There is no benefit in continuing prophylactic antibiotic until drains have been removed. So if you think your surgery is over, post-operatively there is no chance of infection or wound is clean, you can just stop the antibiotic and drain can be removed without any antibiotic cover. So post-operatively application of sterile dressing has to be done. This usually goes with the surgeon's preference. Some surgeons you immediately open on the next day morning to examine the wound. It is advisable to go for the 24 to 48 hours. Few surgeons usually they open the wound directly on the 5th or 6th day or suture removal day. So definitely it is advisable for 24 to 48 hours. One reason being compressive dressing usually provides a hemostasis and good healing property. That is, the scar, the edges of the skin are approximated properly. Sterile technique for changing dressing, as I told, always scrub the hand with the proper antiseptic before opening the dressing, and after that again thorough cleaning has to be done and a fresh dressing has to be applied. Removal of drains as soon as possible has to be done, which will be a source of infection again. Prevention of cross infection and resistance of the organism. Avoid unnecessary prolonged stay of the patient in the hospital, which is the main reason for the cross infection of the patient. So concluding this class, it is very important to understand the concept of surgical site infection, why a patient gets infection and how it can be prevented, which results, these infections will result in significant patient morbidity, mortality and increased hospital cost. Just reduction in surgical site infection can be achieved by strict adherence to standard surgical guidelines. Observations have been revealed failure to follow standard guidelines alone leading to wound infection. So at the end I want to conclude that important is all the doctors have to just stick to the basic guidelines. Thank you. Subscribe my channel for surgery and related topics.